We are live.
Hey,
All
hey,
right. So, how are you today, sir?
I'm all right. Yeah, just working on a bunch of big projects. My head's like full of stuff.
Ooh, stuffed head. That at this time, there's a lot of people sick
Yeah,
out. We're
yeah.
so
No, this isn't.
proud of that.
It's not COVID.
Okay.
it's
All right. I just want to make sure your stuffed head is not COVID. All right. As always, we want to give everybody a little bit of time to come on in. It's really funny today. What we're going to be discussing is really, I think, a very interesting topic. And the reason is I get asked two questions that I think this topic applies to. Okay. So, one of those questions that I get asked is tell me the number one thing, Taylor, that I need to do to get people to pick up the phone and call me. One thing.
Mhm.
Okay. It's hard. People don't realize how hard that is to try to find the one thing that can get people interested in your business. And we're going to talk about why that's so difficult today. The second question I get, which is just as fascinating, is I don't know. I've always gotten referrals. I just really don't think people are really out there looking at businesses all that much. Unless you're a restaurant, unless you need a recipe, unless it's something like that, like an emergency. I'm not really sure that people are really looking for my business or anybody else's business out there. So that's really what we want to talk about is the customer journey. In other words, it's not just the entire customer journey, but it's the wacky truth about how your customer starts that journey. You
How they
know,
find you? Yeah.
how they find you in the beginning. How they reach out and even figure out if you're their company or not. So it's just interesting. I get those questions enough. I thought, I think we need to really dig in and talk about how does a consumer find a company they want to do work for in today's marketing world. I think that's a really good question. So, in the sense of how consumers find you, I would like to know how do you think consumers find you? I mean, that's a great question. How do they do that? This is what most people think right here. They go to my website. They go to my website, they read about my business, and they call me from my website. So the question I want to ask you, Carter, is this: is that true?
Well, so the question is, so they found you on your website, but how did they find your website? Right?
There we go.
Yeah. Lou Curley says on the internet. That's like the
Yes,
standard answer that when you ask somebody during when you're booking the appointment, how'd you hear about us? They say on the internet.
on the internet.
That doesn't
Yeah,
tell you a whole lot, does it?
exactly, exactly. So it's just one of those things. It's such a phenomena that yeah, you know how people find you on the internet. So let's talk about that. What ways can you just sit here because we've not rehearsed this at all? All right,
Right.
just I'm going to ask this question. This is totally cold right now. Carter, name every way on the internet somebody can find you.
Well, so if they know what your website address is, they can just type your website address in. But if they have no idea what your website address is, then they need to find out. Maybe they know what your company name is. So they'll maybe do a search on Google or Bing, or they'll start with a search for your company name, and
So search
then
engines.
yeah, search engines, but specifically for your company name, right? That's if they know your company name, if they're already familiar with your company name. And then they'll see your website address pop up as one of the search results. They'll click on that, and then they're on your website. But if they don't know your company name, in other words, if they just know that they have a problem that most likely, let's say, a chimney service company can take care of, then they need to know what chimney service companies are near me that I can work with. And so they start their search usually on a search engine with something else, like, you know, chimney services near me or something like that, or maybe more specific about this, the nature of the very problem that they have. Maybe they, so those are like intentional, right? Like, I'm going to find somebody who can help me with a problem, but there's lots of other ways that they could be exposed to you and find you on the internet. They're just browsing through, pushing their thumb on Facebook and come across one of your ads, or come across one of their friends that has recently used you and has good things to say, or someone else that's in your circle of friends that's asking, does anyone know a good chimney service company? And you look at the comments and you see one name being recommended over and over and over again, and it's this one company in town. And so maybe you've heard about them before, but hadn't really thought to call them. You still don't need to call them right then, but it cements that name in your head. So now you're out driving through the neighborhood and you see a yard sign, that has the company name on it. I've got one just for one of our clients right around the corner from me right now. And or you see the truck on the road and there's the web address. And so you pull up to a stoplight behind the truck and you just snap a picture with your phone, because you need to call them later, tomorrow or whenever, when you get home, because now you have a need. So, I mean, these are kind of like the weird things that happen, right? One thing triggers another thing, triggers another thing, triggers a thought that leads to this, and before long, they're doing a search, or they're getting to your website through any of the number of ways. And those are just a few, like right off the top of my head.
Now I'm going to fill in some of the gaps.
Okay.
All right. So city pages. There's a lot of pages in your city that has places where you can have a listing. BBB. That's a place. Do you have a listing on Better Business Bureau? Do you have a listing in a network thing like BNI or Gold Star? That's another place people are looking. They can go to a newspaper. Newspapers a lot of times have listing in newspapers if they're looking at local news online. There's ads on local news. There's ads that you could do through Google. They're called not search ads, display ads, and they can be put on the Weather Channel. So somebody goes and checks their local weather on the Weather Channel app, and the ad comes up. I mean, I could go on and on and on about this, about all the different places where you can be seen online. All right. Whether it is for branding purposes, whether it's to send them back to your website, whether it's people looking for review. Oh yeah, then there's the reviews. No matter how many times they see you, over 90% of the people are actually going to go online and check out your reviews just to make sure that everybody else is telling the truth. So if you've got a really good bank of reviews out there, I mean, these are the way people actually get to you.
Or it's a part of the story, right? Like, and it's never like, Terry makes a great point here. I'll put her comment up. She says she tracks every customer and then creates a report. And if a customer says Google and Yelp as like the answer to how did you find us, then I never know which one to list in my report, since the customer went to Google first and then clicked on Yelp. I can't put in both Google and Yelp because it'll skew the numbers. So that illustrates the point that it's rarely just a to B kind of journey, right? Like, I found you here and now we're connected. It's almost always this really strange A to H to B to J to Z to, it's around and around. And eventually, they make that connection with you. But what they're going to tell you in terms of how they found you may not at all be representative of that wacky journey that they've just been on to get to you. So, I'll just say this, since Terry brought it up, and because I think it's important, and we're going to talk more about this later. I think when you're doing a report like that, and it's absolutely great that you're tracking it, because you're already leaps and bounds ahead of other people when it comes to knowing what's working in your marketing, knowing where people are being exposed to you. So that's super. Um, I don't think we have to have like a one-to-one relationship there though in the report. Like in other words, one new customer to one new source. I think your report can list many different places that customer mentioned. So if they mention 5 places, mark down all 5 of those places, because those were important to that journey. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have 5 new customers. You just have represented 5 new or 5 places that were told to you that customer used as part of the way that they connected with you. So to me, I think it's important. We'll talk more about tracking in a little bit, but I just wanted to mention that it doesn't have to be one-to-one relationship.
Yeah, and hey guys, if you really like the content that we bring, if you could give us a thumbs up, hey, thanks Chuck, we really appreciate that, or a little love, that would be great. And I'm going to add on to what Carter said. One of my favorite things to ask new business owners when I talk to them, and they may have been in the business 20 years, but I'm just saying they're new to me, is how do you get your business? And when they say, "Oh, our business is 100% referral marketing," it's like, really? 100%, huh? Yeah. Well, why do you want to be on Google then? Uh, uh, and then I go, okay. So do you realize that if you rely 100% on referral marketing, what else have you done? Well, I haven't. So the truth is, right now, 100% of your business you think comes from referral marketing. The truth is, if you have a website and you're on the internet, even if you get referred by somebody, the chances are somebody else is going to come. That customer has gone online and checked you out. So this is what we're talking about when we look at everything. If all you're doing, and Terry, I'm not saying this as an example, but I've had people say I get all my business off of Yelp. Well, what else are you doing? Well, I don't do anything else. Well, then where else would you expect your business to come from? All your energy is on Yelp, then sure, you're showing all your business comes from Yelp. So yeah, it is.
If all you do is hang out in bars, then you're going to find your wife in a bar, and you're going to meet your
Exactly.
wife in a bar.
Yeah. And if it's not a good match, you keep marrying the same person over and over again, maybe change your location. I don't know. I'm just saying. That's what I've been told. So, um, and Lou and Terry, thanks so much for the thumbs up. We really appreciate it. But my point is, whatever you concentrate on is usually what you're going to get. Whatever you're thinking about, whatever you think is where you're going to get your business is what you're concentrating on, and so that's where a lot of your business comes from. But I'm here to tell you, and this is not me through my research, but this is research that Carter and I have read for the last several years over and over and over again, that people who study this stuff and study where people come from and how you navigate through the internet and online and from this to that, everybody will say, man, a lot of times you're 3, 4, 5, 6 touches in before anybody ever picks up the phone to call you. So the main places they seem to check you out is, of course, Google reviews, Facebook and Facebook reviews. If you're on the West Coast, absolutely Yelp reviews. They normally check your website. So those seem to be the top 4 that we see over and over and over again. But we're also starting to see some others kind of in there. BBB is still a trust authority, so that comes into play. They want to know your overall review profile. So they're looking at multiple reviews. They're not just looking at Google or Facebook or Yelp. They're going in and looking at Yellow Pages and the BBB and the different places that leave reviews. So you have to be aware of a lot of this, and it seems to be a lot, but it's really not that much, because many times when you have a listing or you've got your website in place, you've got your Google Business Profile. I'm going to get used to that one of these days. Your Google Business Profile is being done. All these things, a lot of times, once you get them in place, it's just tweaking them. you're not making really big moves. And then at that point, you're making some moves in some of the other platforms, maybe an ad platform, an organic platform, those kind of things. So I want to be really clear that we're not talking about you having to be everywhere to make sure that everybody sees you everywhere. A lot of times it's a natural progression of some of the things that you start out doing in your linking profiles.
Yeah. Terry says that BBB doesn't really factor in much in San Diego on the West Coast, and it's true.
Mhm. That's where Yelp is.
Yelp is huge there, but Yelp is not very present in the Midwest. But the BBB, it really is. So it's funny how there's pockets like that. And that goes to knowing, when you're listening to guys like us that have clients all across the country, um, you need to, rather than just listening to the places they're naming, you need to be thinking about your community and knowing, well, this service doesn't matter as much in our community, but this one really does, and so I need to focus there. Or maybe there's one in your market that we've never heard of, but it's the cat's meow in terms of sending referral business and exposure and everything else. So it's not just a matter of um, you know one size fits all. It really is about going after the things that or that you see in your market are good places for you to be.
And another place that I think we miss sometimes is the microsites, and I know we've talked about that in the past. Um, in Nashville, Tennessee, one of the best microsites here is Nextdoor. There used to be Google groups. Some of the Facebook groups are microsites. I live in a little town called Cottontown, Tennessee, right outside of White House, Tennessee, north of Nashville, and they've got a community page, and they're passing referrals there all the time. Word of mouth referrals. So you have to look beyond just the normal big internet thing that everybody talks about too, because Facebook is everywhere, Google is everywhere, Apple's everywhere, Amazon's everywhere. So there's the everywhere sites, and then there's these little bitty pocket microsites. So
Well, to that
contact a
point,
lot of those.
all of those sites, especially the ones like Nextdoor and the forums and things where people are asking for recommendations, um, it's a phenomenal place to be because and to have a lot of traction where your customers are making those referrals and throwing your name around in a positive way, because you can actually get a customer long before that customer actually reaches out to you. They
Mhm.
may not have, you may be talking to somebody who's renting an apartment right now, but they know that one day they're going to buy a house and they really would like a great big fireplace. When they do, it's like one of their dream things, and they keep seeing your name going by and all these places, and they've already decided that you're the company they're going to use when the time comes. But it may be 3 or 4 more years before they reach out to you for when they buy their house and they're ready for you to come do the thing, because they don't have a need right now, but they're already your customer. And that's kind of cool, because being online and having that kind of exposure earns you the not the right, but earns you the opportunity. It's like money in the bank, a savings investment, if you will, for much later on. So money that marketing effort that you're putting in today may not be realized for years, but it will eventually. It all adds up. It all creates momentum, and inertia going in the right direction.
No, I think that's really, really true. And last week, if you missed it, we talked about omni-channel marketing. And so, Carter, talk a little bit about why omni-channel marketing and customer service is so important when it comes to this climate, if you will, of how people find you.
Yeah, because you don't know how somebody's going to find you, and more the places where they find you are also platforms where they can communicate with you. If they find you on Facebook, or they there's Facebook Messenger, and there's different ways for people to send you a request via an email, and all of these things. And so you get these multiple channels of customer service where you can communicate with people, um, and make that happen in the same place where they find you. So having tools to be able to manage that become really important. But I mean, so we talked about omni-channel. I don't know that we last week. I don't know that we did the best job of explaining it, although I think we covered it pretty adequately. I was thinking about from a practical standpoint what that really looks like, and Taylor shared an example with me that I just thought was great from one of the sources that we regularly read. But anyway, just imagine a story where, or a situation where a customer uh, sees your Google ad, clicks on your website, uses the chat box on the bottom of your website to start a conversation and ask a few questions. They don't book then, but you know they're kind of in a hurry. They got to go pick up their kids, and so they take it on the road, and now they're on their phone, and maybe they give you a phone call. And they ask a couple more questions of the person in the office, and specifically about the problem that they're having. And the person in the office says, well, I'd like to see that just to make sure that I know what you're talking about before we send somebody out. So I know who to send out to, give you an estimate on what you're talking about. Would you mind just when you can taking a quick video of that? Just walk around. I want to, if you can take a front facing picture and one from the side and maybe one going up the flue or something, then that'll give me a better idea of what we're looking at. Just send that to me at my email address, and, at the company email address here for that. And I'll review it, and then I'll reach back out to you. So they go home, they shoot some video, they send it to you in an email attachment. You have a chance to review that, and now you're talking via email. But maybe they book because they sent it to you, with their cell phone number. Maybe you book it over text message, book the appointment using text back and forth. So, there's all these channels involved and all these ways of communicating. And that's what omni-channel really looks like. It's helping the customer have the best, most seamless customer experience with you across every single place in technology and platform and everything that they already use. And that is, I think, one of the most important things to keep in mind when it comes to what omni-channel can do for you. A tool that keeps the customer conversation from all of those different places in one place under one record for the customer becomes crucial to being able to manage it. For multiple people in the office to be able to jump in and pick up the thread and know exactly where this started and what's been said along the way, even though it's happened in 4 or 5 different channels and places, it's all there as one record. That gives you just a tremendous amount of power to be able to help someone. It's always frustrating when you get put on hold or to be connected with someone else in a different division, and you get on the phone with the person in the other division, and it's almost like starting over from scratch. They want to know, can you give me your 4-digit PIN and what street you grew up on and all these verification questions? Well, you've already done that.
Mm-hmm.
You're already in the pipeline. Why are you having to do it again? It's because that person who picked up the thread isn't using a system that already knows that you're verified and able to have the conversations that you're having with people deeper into the system.
One word, Comcast.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. So, that's one of the things. AT&T, there's, charter.net, any of them.
Yeah.
But, that's the point is, make it so that your customer doesn't have to jump through multiple hoops multiple times in order to do business with you. You can consolidate those messages into one place. And I think that makes the wacky, crazy customer journey more manageable for you and more manageable for them and much easier for them to choose you to do business with because you're just removing friction. You're removing obstacles. And that makes me excited. Honestly, these days, that's one of the things that makes me the most excited about what you can do with digital marketing.
Yeah, no, I think that's very, very true. And then I want to talk a little bit about tracking. The thing, when you have all these things coming from all these different directions, it makes tracking even more important. Now, and I think we can get to hyper focused on exactly where things come from, which is what Carter was talking about before. A lot of times what I do is I have a bucket, and in my bucket, I have sub buckets. So I have a bucket called the internet, and in my sub bucket, maybe Facebook, Google, listed in my sub bucket. I may have internet organic and I may have internet ads. So if they found me from an ad, then in my bucket of ads, maybe Google AdWords. It may be for those that can, the Google local ads. It might be Facebook ads. It may be some display ads, search ads, however you want to list them out. All different kind of ways you can do that. And there's all kinds of ads now that you can put all over the place. So, that may be the way that you do it. What I don't want to do is have, all these come from this platform. We can dig down in the platform and figure that out. Okay. But overall, when you're looking at your overall business, I think it's very, very important to understand and know that as long as you have the tracking in the general bucket, that should give you really good information. And then, and you can break those buckets down however you want. But if you get too hyper focused, then what happens is now you've got a situation like Terry described. Well, I went to Google and then I went to Yelp and then I called you. So what bucket do you put it in? Well, those happen to be organic. So it would go in your organic bucket. Yeah, tracking is real gold for your business. I mean, knowing where things are, understanding that, very, very important for your business. Absolutely. Did you want to add anything to that, Carter?
I think that about covers it. It's taking a snapshot of, instead of just thinking about a line, like the old picture of like the tin cans with the string attached between them, that you used to make as kids to talk to one another. That's not what your customer journey looks like anymore. I mean, from like point A to point B, it looks more like a subway map of a major metropolitan metro system, right? I mean, it's multiple stops, multiple points, junctions where you get off and get on to something else, but ultimately, when you're tracking that, I think it becomes more meaningful to how you manage your business and where you focus your money and your time for getting the kinds of customers you really want.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Guys, if y'all have anything additional to add or questions to ask, go ahead and put those in the comments. What we do every single day is, once this is over with, you can access this anytime, any day or night. Isn't that nice? Just get on Spark Lives all day long. It can be found as a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or your favorite player. And we love that. And then next week, I got asked this question. I thought, you know what? When's it time to talk about voice search? I think it's time to talk about voice search. So that's exactly what we're going to do next week. If you're wondering what voice search is, it's anything from, hey Siri, and she may answer, you hear her, to Alexa. See, there she is. She has no idea what I was saying. She doesn't understand, and that's part of voice search. Alexa. There's Google. Who else? There's a bunch of them out there. I'm amazed at how many different voice searches there are. Croissant is another one. So yeah, these are just things that we're going to dive into and talk about. A lot of our clients are already optimized for voice search, but that is really a thing to do that. So that's a great deal. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. Thanks again, Terry. Love your comments. We hope you think we're awesome. We kind of know us really well. We've been friends over 30 years. Carter's really awesome. I will tell you that. It's right.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks so much, Terry. We appreciate you guys, and hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. We're going to talk about voice search. Bye-bye.